What is happening, friends of CCP Podcasting Productions? Welcome back to Behind the Curtain. I am your host, the one and only Chris Page, and uh, tagging in my tag team partner. The opening theme caters to him because he is everything, including a sexy boy. He's not your boy toy. He's the X Effect. Brian Cady, what's up, brother? How are you doing?
Oh, I'm a sexy boy, huh?
Well, you're
Okay.
not.
Um,
I'm not your boy toy. That's what I'm saying, man. What's going on, brother?
Not much. Had a very interesting day of announcing basketball, but I'm good. I'm ready to go.
Yeah,
I'm ready to, you know, have some actual sanity around me. We're all
yeah,
good.
yeah. We had a hiatus last week, but we're back in the saddle, and we're gonna jump into what we were gonna cover last week. Except we're gonna break this down into two parts because it's such a kind of I mean, I don't want to say it's a legendary story, but it's definitely one from 2009 through 2012, 2013, and when WrestleMania season was coming around, it kind of occupied television, and it was your idea to talk about this one. So tell our peoples what we've got going on.
Yeah, I mean the when you think of wrestling rivalries, we tasked ourselves with come up with one that was basically pre-attitude era, and then one that was from the attitude era to modern day. And you know, to me, there are certain ones that have just been overkilled a little bit, like obviously Austin Rock, Austin McMahon. And it's like leave all the attitude era stuff in my leave that in my teenage years. I'm good with that. Let's go to something that's a little closer to modern day. And so the first thing I instantly thought of was Taker, HBK, Triple H, the quartet of matches that span from WrestleMania 25 up through 26, 27, and 28. It consisted of what, four different cities, if I'm correctly. It consisted of Houston, Phoenix, Miami was the last one. Oh, Atlanta and Miami.
Atlanta was I was there in person live for the shit show that was John Cena versus The Miz.
Right. And so, what we're doing today is we're gonna start simply focusing on the Taker HBK aspect of it from 25 and 26, and then next episode we'll jump into the Triple H half of that 4 WrestleMania rivalry that occurred, involving Taker's streak and continuing it from 14-0 to 18 and excuse me, from 16-0 to 20-0. Um, at that point.
Well, this is when Taker's streak kind of became a storyline for WrestleMania, and it may have already been at that point as well. I can remember back when I got the inkling of Shawn Taker at WrestleMania. I was sold on it at that point, like immediately. The road getting there was one that I didn't necessarily see coming, and it was one that kept me like on the edge of my seat. I remember back, paying attention to this, and this is like fucking 13 years ago, because it was Shawn and Taker. You go back to their stuff in 97, 98, Hell in a Cell, and the Ground Zero pay per view, the odds and the ends that they were involved with, but they never really got that grand stage, right? Like, but now here it is. It's like rolled out on a red carpet. It's Taker and it's fucking Shawn Michaels. It's a can't miss.
Yeah, I mean, when you take a look back, I mean, the way the story is told by people around WWE at the time is that um, nobody really noticed that there was even a streak. Nobody even noticed that Taker was undefeated at WrestleMania until, as legend has it, Michael P.S. Hayes brought it up in creative as they were prepping for the Taker Flair match in Toronto at WrestleMania 18. And then Taker did like the count. He counted up to 10 with his fingers, and showed that he was 10-0 at Mania. And that was really the first recognition, both behind the scenes and in front of the camera, that the streak was now for sure a thing. At that point in time, but this is a thing where Taker and Shawn, they were um, they crossed paths. They didn't cross paths early on in their careers, but they eventually did cross paths towards the very end of Shawn's first run,
Hmm.
which is when Shawn was in massive pain in the ass and having his drug issues and stuff like that. And obviously, we all know how that all ended with Shawn messing up his back at Royal Rumble in the casket match with Taker, and then he drops the belt to Stone Cold at WrestleMania 14, and then goes into the Deep Dark Night. Um, so in a way, like they kind of had closure because they were going forward with Stone Cold anyways for Boston at WrestleMania 14. Like that was the plan the whole time to begin with. But at the same time, it was like it kind of didn't feel like there was closure at the same time. If that makes any sense. 'Cause at that time you had Taker also being pulled in a different direction with Kane, and then obviously you have the whole Shawn Tyson Stone Cold thing going on. So it was like yeah, they had their Hell in a Cell match, they had their Rumble match, but at the same time it was kind of like it didn't feel like enough when Shawn went away for the first time. Um,
I mean,
and then
I don't mean to step on
yeah,
you. You would think that, like, in that time frame, in that era, that there would have been more interactions on TV or on pay per view between Taker and HBK. But really and truly, there's like three situations in front of four if you count Survivor Series where Taker
mhm.
and Brett squared off and Brett got the belt with Sean's chair shot. Uh, you would
That was
think,
SummerSlam.
yeah, sorry, SummerSlam.
Yeah, that was
You,
SummerSlam '97. Yep.
but you would think that there would have been more interactions, and I think because there wasn't is another piece of what made this to me so much better. 10 years later, 11 years later, when we're on the road to it, and knowing that HBK picks up the number. Yeah, I mean, was going to call it the number one contendership, but picks up the opportunity to challenge the Undertaker and his streak. It was I keep going back to it. I was a fucking kid in a candy store.
Yeah, I mean, you fast forward to, I mean, obviously they had like brief interactions during the '07 and '08 Rumble matches, but overall, it was kind of like two. What's the phrasing? Like two two people crossing in the dark, and I don't know something. So, I can't remember what the phrase is, but basically, these are two people who would cross paths, but the paths never intersected. If that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like it was just one of those things where like even if you just got them looking at each other, it was like like it was a reminder of um, what could be again if they wanted it to be. Um, so when you get to early '09 and you have obviously Taker's streak now being a very predominant thing in that he's coming off of um let's see here. He's coming off of bear with me. I'm trying to get back to the table again with the different matches that he had leading up to that. But he's just coming off of back to back pretty stellar matches that both involved the World Heavyweight title when he won the belt off of Batista at 23 in Detroit, and then he retained the title over Edge in Orlando at 24. Now you're getting to a point where these matches are starting to become um not just matches for the they're not just Undertaker matches. They're becoming one of those things where talents backstage are like, okay, if I can't get to the main event, Taker's like a 1B. Like Taker match at Mania was basically on equal footing by that point because of how big the streak had gotten. Um, so it was just a matter of getting the right person in there with the right creative. And when you put Shawn and Taker together, it's hard to get anything that's going to suck.
Wait, and what I think another aspect, going back to Taker Streak and it being a thing, is as these years progressed, the idea of Taker getting beat at WrestleMania was becoming more and more of a thing.
Hmm.
And I think that may be a piece of the next 4 years. This being the start of it. I think that's a huge piece of the equation because the disbelief is there. Taker's not getting any younger, but he was still performing at a world class level. I mean, he wouldn't be there if he wasn't. Um, but I do believe that had a piece. That's a little small piece of the puzzle. Um,
Yeah, but even though people knew that he was getting older, I mean, like you said, he's still putting out world class matches. He's still at that time, I think, if my math is correct, he was probably around mid 40s? Question mark, I think. Um, so you had him in a situation where, yeah, the age is up there, but at the same time, I'm sorry, he was in his yeah, early to mid 40s. Yeah, he was 44 by the time they had it for the first Shawn match.
mhm.
Um, so yeah, while he was getting up there, at the same time, um, he kind of got a late start into it because um like this wasn't a thing that he like came out of high school and was like, yeah, well, I do this. Like he was a basketball first guy, so he kind of had a few years kind of saved the tank in that manner. But also like his body wasn't quite starting to break down on him. Like you kind of start seeing the breakdown really in the first Hunter match
Mhm.
in Atlanta. But for these two Shawn matches, I mean, he's coming in and you're not quite seeing the wear and tear starting to take the toll that was taking until really that first Triple H match at 27. But obviously we'll get to that, get into that next week.
I think the listen. So we're going to talk about the actual program for a second. This show on this card. The Colognes beat Morrison and the Miz, and there's no time here, but to unify the tag straps, just so for context as to what's going on this pay per view. This is the same show that Punk beats Kane, Mark Henry, Montel Montavious Porter, Shelton Benjamin, Kofi Kingston, Christian, and Finley in a Money in the Bank ladder match. They go 14 minutes, 25 seconds. Santina Marella beats 24 Divas to become Miss WrestleMania 6 minutes. Jericho, this handicap match versus he beat Piper, Steamboat, and Snuka, which was throwback to the old school. This was actually supposed to be Jericho and Mickey Rourke, if I'm not mistaken. Um,
Right.
9 minutes on that. Matt Hardy over Jeff Hardy in an Extreme Rules, 13 minutes. Rey Mysterio beats Bradshaw for the IC strap, 21 seconds. You heard me, 21 seconds. Shawn Taker, 30 minutes.
Is that also where JBL retired because he was so angry about losing that quick?
Probably, I
I
believe.
think that's what I think that's what the angle was. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
And then you got the incredible main events of this particular program. John Cena defeats Edge and the Big Show for the World Championship, 14 minutes. And Triple H beats Randy Orton for the WWE Championship, 23 minutes. Not before we even talk about the actual spectacle that was this fucking match. Uh, Looking at this card, when I see Shawn Taker on it, I'm like, yeah, that's really all I need to see. And it's really this is a one match, and no disrespect to the people on this program, but it's a one match show.
Yeah, I mean, I would say there's a 1A and a 1B here. Um, because no offense to Cena, Show, and Edge, but I don't know the match, the lead up to the match and the match itself was just kind of meh for me. Um, but to me, I thought Triple H and Orton had a good build to it. I'm trying to remember if this is because I get these two things mixed in my head. I can't remember if they were leading up to this match or if it was a different match later on in the year between these two that I'm thinking of. But this was probably around the same time in the program where you have um, Orton handcuffing Triple H to the ropes and kissing an
Mm-hmm.
unconscious Steph after giving an RKO, and then you also have Triple H invading, quote unquote, invading Orton's house while he was doing an interview on the show. Um, so I mean, I'd say those are the two best built programs, but obviously, you know, uh, you know,
When
Taker Shawn was like it was the main event that wasn't the main event. Let's put it that way.
it's the match that when you look back at this particular card and you're like, ah, what do you remember about that? Well, I got news for you. It ain't Hunter Randy. It's definitely Taker and Shawn, and for good fucking reason. Um, you want to talk about something that was well paced and well thought out from literally beginning, middle to end of that match. They call it one of the greatest, if not the greatest, WrestleMania match of all time. I'm hard pressed to disagree. For 30 minutes, these guys told a tremendous story uh, that and just go back to it, suspended the disbelief. I thought Shawn was gonna fucking. I thought he had the moment. You know what I mean? I thought, oh, this is it. This is it,
Mm-hmm.
and all the way up until the actual finish, when the moonsault caught into a tombstone. Um, I kind of when I saw Shawn go for the moonsault, I was like, oh shit, this could be this could be the moment where Taker takes it home because it was so late in the match, right? But that was the only minor thing when I was watching it. Like, ah, this could be it. Everything else I was sold on. Every near fall, choke slams, tombstones, last rides, Hell's Gates, super kick. It's all there, man.
Yeah, I mean, and even the spectacle of the match even was beforehand in the entrances because because the whole main basis for the first match was Sean being a born again Christian, and they really played up to that the Sean Taker gimmick being the born again Christian versus the dead man gimmick. So obviously you have HBK making his entrance first, where he's up on the scissor lift coming down from the heavens and like the all white with the spotlight on him, and then the entrance for Taker is coming up through the staging onto the ramp. So I mean, it's just the entrances alone. If the entrances alone didn't get you drawn into the match, then I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. Like you better check your pulse and see if you're alive. Um, and then the match itself, like you said, I mean, obviously the first thing that really caught people's eyes was you know Taker with the crazy ass suicide dive where he thought he was gonna break his freaking neck. Um, when HBK pulled the cameraman in the way out
Hmm.
at ringside. But yeah, like I mean, like you mentioned, like tombstones, last ride, chokeslam, Hell's Gate, and obviously HBK doing super kicks and this, that, and the other thing, and um, just
Well, the
it was an amazing
psychology, it
match.
was this, and the psychology of it, and how they utilized the time. Now, I think that this is one that they went long on, and if you're Taker and Shawn at WrestleMania, uh, with all due respect, do you really give a shit if someone's pissed that you go long? Look at what's following you, and look at what's remembered. I think
Right.
the right choice was made if they did go long here, because the story and the psychological build throughout it was just impeccable.
Hmm.
I mean, even like I go back to I think the first Tombstone and Shawn kicks and Taker's
Hmm.
eyes are like, what the fuck? Like he's
Hmm.
telling a story just with his expressions. It was a masterpiece.
Yeah, I mean, it obviously goes down as one of the, if not the best WrestleMania match of all time. Um, and just, it was a remarkable match. That's all there is to it. And obviously now when that happened, and now it becomes a question of, okay, like does this turn? Is this really going to be a one-off thing? Because obviously this match showed that Taker still has something left in the tank. Shawn isn't losing a step. Um, and people walked away from that match expecting it to just be a one-off, just because like that's how it's always been with Taker. There hasn't been any repeat matches back-to-back years. Um, but obviously, everybody got a nice little present come the following winter. So it was, yeah, it was a hell of a match, and obviously, like you mentioned, it's definitely the one that, the match that a lot of people remember the most from that Mania.
I mean, tell me I'm wrong. I don't think that I am. It was even down to the finish, like with Taker going over. It was an emotional roller coaster ride, and it was almost like Taker realizes that he just got by. Like he just squeaked it out. I did not know that they were coming back around the following year with a rematch. Uh, but then again, I wasn't reading dirt sheets or anything like that back when this was playing up. But when Taker goes over HBK, do you remember what your thoughts on that were, or basically when it happened? Where were you at? What was you thinking about?
I was thinking, where the hell do they go from here? Not together, I mean individually. Like you just had these two put on a classic, on an epic match, and now there's going to be another situation where okay, they had them that match and that's it, and now I go back to never crossing paths again, or do you make this into something more than just a one-off? Um, that was the first thing that came to my mind personally. Um, just made me wonder, and then obviously, you know, Taker getting hurt about a month later didn't help. He goes on the shelf for about 4 months, returns at SummerSlam, and it goes on a little run from there. Eventually winning the World Heavyweight title, but you know, it's one of those things where when he did get hurt about a month after Mania, was kind of like, does that mean we're missing out on? It made you wonder if you were missing out on some bigger potential come out of that, at least in the immediate future. That's where I was at.
But I think possibly, yeah. Uh, I think how the story played though was great. I mean, they pretty much kept them apart until the elimination chamber. And shoot, that, well, I remember when that happened when Shawn popped up. I could have swore that Taker was moving forward to Mania with the belt, and I think that I forget who was in line, but I just knew that that's where they were going. And that the pay per view before that elimination chamber when HBK showed up, came out through that grate, pops up, super kicks Taker. Jericho got the pin. I was like, "Oh shit, I'm back invested again because I know what happened about a year ago, and now if they're gonna do it again, it's gonna be how do we top this?" And I was already immediately hooked on it again.
Yeah, I mean, it was it was one of those things where I mean, maybe I'm just naive, but I was never a big dirt sheet guy.
Hmm.
At least not until I started doing wrestling podcasts in the last 18 months or so. I was never a big dirt sheet guy, never a big wrestling news website guy. I was a guy who enjoyed watching the product, and it's and this is kind of like the early incantations of social media for WWE and wrestling in general. So like I kind of dabbled into following that stuff, but it's one of those things where if you allowed yourself to remain pure in the fact that you don't go hunting for spoilers or anything of that sort, this shit shocked the hell out of you because there had been no no there had been nothing at all to hint towards this happening because they had not touched since Mania. Um, they hadn't had even a cross word with each other since Mania. Um, until um they crossed paths. I think it was a week or two before Elimination Chamber. That's like kind of birthed the idea of a rematch, even though Taker rejected the rematch initially. But it was one of those things where okay, he's going into Chamber. Like, what could possibly happen? Like, you're not even thinking about anything like that happening because nothing like that has ever happened in a Chamber match.
And
Like when's first when did you ever who would have ever thought about somebody hiding under the goddamn chamber and popping out of it to interfere in a match? Like,
it fucking happens. And it was a shocking moment, to say the very least. Like, it's probably would go down as one of the most shocking moments in Elimination Chamber history, I would say. Just based on where it took, both Taker and Shawn for WrestleMania, the rematch, and what made this one, like, at the little cherry on top was Shawn putting his career on the line. That's how we got the match when Taker finally agreed. When Shawn's career went up, I was like, we might get our first fucking loss, because I didn't see Shawn hanging it up at that point. So I was like
I don't know anyone who did.
I was all for it. I was, let's say, oh, okay, here we go. What's happening? Where are we going with this? And
Right, like, because, like, at the same time, and I don't mean to step on you like that.
no,
That
you're
my
fine.
apologies, but like, you know, at that point, if you're staying away from the Meltzer newsletters and you're staying away from the whatever websites existed at this point in 2010, if you had half a brain as a wrestling fan, you're hoping Shawn wins at this point. Not because you hate Taker or you want to be against Taker, but you're like, Shawn still has, like, you feel like Shawn has so much left in the tank because he's not missing a beat. He hasn't missed a beat since coming back in, what was that, '04 he came back or something like that? Like, he's done nothing but put on stellar match after stellar match, and you're thinking, there's no way. Like, there's like, no, like, this can't happen. Come on. Um, so when he puts his career on the line, that was one of those things where before the bell rings, that was the first time where before the bell rang, you kind of went in hesitant about declaring Taker the winner at already
Yeah,
because of the stipulation.
sure. Um, and there wasn't. I mean, I don't remember off the top of my head how much physicality was involved going from the build to the actual program and the event itself. But it's another situation where, unlike the year previous, they learned from their mistakes, and fucking Taker and Shawn are on top. Um, and I believe this is only the second time in history that the belt didn't close the program. I think the only other time was Lawrence Taylor and Bam Bam Bigelow.
Oh, you had to lump it in with that one. God.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take us to a depressing moment in our program, but I believe so.
If you want to know how depressing it is, go try to look it up.
No, thank you. I've seen it 3 times, and it was 2 times too many.
I don't know
Um,
you 3 times, but okay.
yeah, yeah. I was over it the first time I saw it. A for effort, just, and LT didn't do a bad job. I just think, yeah, looking at that program, you could have put somebody. There were a couple other matches could have been on top. and it would have made
Right.
sense, and I would have been perfectly fine. On this particular show, uh, for context sake, Yoshitatsu wins the 26 person battle royal in 8 minutes. Show Miz, Big Show and Miz beat Morrison and R Truth, 3 minutes 20 seconds. This is the program that had Randy Orton defeat Cody Rhodes and Ted DiBiase in a triple threat match in 9 minutes. Jack Swagger won Money in the Bank over Christian, Dolph Ziggler, Drew McIntyre, Evan Bourne, Kane, Kofi Kingston, Matt Hardy, MVP, and Shelton Benjamin. This is the
Jack
get
Swagger.
yeah
Swagger.
this is the get everybody on the card match. Money in the Bank goes 14 minutes, we'll say. Triple H defeats Sheamus 12 minutes. Rey Mysterio beats Punk 6 minutes. Bret Hart beats McMahon by submission 11
Talk
minutes.
talk about fucking painful to watch.
Oh, I love
I
Bret
would
Hart.
I would put this over the LT match like this, just because. I mean, God love Brett, and I think I've said before on if it was on this show, it was definitely another show. Like, I mean, Brett was the first wrestler that got me into pro wrestling to begin with, but oh God, like no, like because if I remember correctly, this is post seizure, correct?
I believe so. Um,
I think this is after he had that cycling accident where he had a seizure when he was riding a bike in Calgary. So like,
mhm.
it's just like
It was tough to
yeah,
watch. They did a lot of gaga with that match, and I think really and truly the only thing Brett did was put him in the sharpshooter. I think the family did everything else.
sounds about right. Yeah,
Which was it's what it needed to be, and they got what they needed out of it, and it worked. But yeah, it was definitely hard to watch. Jericho retains the world title over Edge, 16 minutes. Alicia Fox, Layla, Maurice, Michelle McCool, and Vicky Guerrero defeat the team of Beth Phoenix, Eve Torres, Gail Kim, Kelly Kelly, and Mickey James in 3 minutes and 20 seconds. Took them longer to get to the ring than to have the actual match.
out of those 10 women, one of these things is not like the other. Who would I be referring to?
I have no idea.
You really think Vicky Guerrero's a wrestler?
Yeah, well, she tried. A for effort.
Yeah, sure. We'll go for that.
John Cena over Batista via submission, 13 minutes for the WWE Championship, and again, 24 minutes. It's Taker and it's Shawn. The stakes were really, really high going into this, and it's another WrestleMania card. Like to me, it's not like the best in the world, but it's not the worst either. Uh, with this match on top, coming in, knowing that it's it's gonna be freaking balls to the wall. If Sean's got his career on the line, he's gonna be bringing the A plus game. Taker's got to be coming into this thinking, what do we have to do to top last year? Because again, last year, the match previous, the year before, at 25, is looked at today as one of, if not the greatest WrestleMania match of all time. It's a lot of pressure, right, to put on your shoulders and try to deliver. So, and not saying that neither one of us could put ourselves in their shoes and be like, damn, like how would I feel if I was going into this? But if you had to feel a way, like knowing the success or failure of this event is on your shoulders, and you've got the storyline and you got the angle. It's there. Didn't really have to do a whole lot to sell it. Sean made challenges. Taker didn't want to do it, and then he comes back and says, "I'll put my career on the line." Taker says, "Fine, let's go." Um, what do you think?
I mean, this was, and again, it told a great story just like the first one did. Um, Especially towards the end because aside from the false finishes, this was Shawn basically getting his own Ric Flair moment. It's the best way for me to describe it. Um, if you recall the Flair HBK match from 3 years earlier, I think it was. You have Flair stumbling up to his feet. Shawn's ready to give the kick. Flair says, "Just fucking give it to me," essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously the "sorry, I love you" thing. Corny as it sounds, so whatever. Shawn basically had a rebellious version of that to end this match and end his career with um, Taker hitting the first tombstone, Shawn kicking out of it, and you have this weird feeling of kind of humility coming out of Taker, like almost like he's not sure if he really wants to do this. And then Shawn basically gives a "fuck you" by slapping him in the face, and then Taker's like, "Oh, all right, fine, I'll put you in the ground." Um, it's just the ending is great. It's the way you would expect Shawn to go down. You don't anticipate him to go down doing anything other than fighting back, and it's just a really great story told. Um, Slightly, I mean, it's hard to put one over the other. I'll give the first match the slight edge over the second match as far as quality of match, but just fantastic job in both of them, I thought.
I think you could put them side by side and have a hard time determining which one is better than the other. But I mean, I've got to agree with you. I do will lean to number one, but not by much. I believe that last tombstone was that when Taker gave him the jumping tombstone, where he
Mm-hmm.
kind of jumped up and just drove him
Yep.
down. I mean that's I mean the only kind of bigger exclamation point would be coming off the middle rope with it, or coming off the top rope with it.
It was
Uh,
almost like, dropping the hammer on the final nail of the coffin, the way he kind of jumped up and came down.
yeah, no doubt. And it was shocking because again, you know, at this point, I was like, all right, well, how do they get around this? How are they going to do it? What are they going to do? Sean's not ready to retire because he was still again Mr. Pay Per View at that point. He was rocking out with just about everybody he was in the ring with.
Mhm.
Um, and then lo and behold, it was definitely legit. And we didn't see him again till he got some Saudi money for Crown Jewel or one of those events.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Quite unfortunate, but
I hear rumor and innuendo, and this is just rumor. I hear it was around 3 million for one
sounds like a
for one match.
sounds about right for a Vince one-time payoff. Yeah.
Uh, so it's that's a lot of money to turn down.
You?
Yeah, no doubt. Um, Taker, you know, as a character, you come off back-to-back WrestleManias, and at this point, I think he's been featured obviously in probably the last 10 prior to. The year before he wasn't the main event. The year before that, I don't know when he was winning the belt or defending if they were on top or on top of the card. But he had been in a featured spot for almost a decade. And he pulls off two big wins over Shawn Michaels, ending his career, mind you. Uh, what would I thought they were priming him back up for a shot at a run at the one of the world belts or the WWE Championship.
How about when Shawn retired?
Yeah, like after I thought they would move Taker into a world belt run after retiring Shawn Michaels. Where else would you have gone at that point?
Great question. Trying to remember at the top of my head
I
what's
don't
the
know what they did even immediately following afterwards, but I don't think that he was going into a run with anybody.
so it goes through do suffers. Oh, okay. Um, Interesting. Um, it was yeah, because this goes into okay. He basically goes into with a whole weird thing with Mysterio and Kane, like It's hard for me to really explain it, but he went to a very weird angle involving Mysterio and Kane that went all the way uh up through Mania with Mysterio involved, and then him and Kane took it up to basically the end of that calendar year, so 2010.
I remember he and Kane were doing their. They did another series of two or three matches around the world belt.
Right.
Okay, yeah. Well, I think we've nailed down HBK and Taker. I think that with all of Taker's many matches at WrestleMania, spanning two decades plus, um, I don't know if any of them were on par with either of these two. Maybe storytelling wise, Triple H, Taker inside of Hell in a Cell, which we'll get to next week. But I think that with anything that followed, these are the last four incredible performances by the Dead Man on the grand stage.
Yeah, I'd agree. Absolutely.
Well, what do you want to say to the people before we tie a bow on this?
Um, yeah. I mean, this is again one of the I'd argue probably the greatest WrestleMania rivalry of all time. If you want to specifically focus into the show, um, there could also be an argument made, I'd say, also for Austin Rock. You could throw that out there as well. But um, as far as just pure storytelling leading up to and within the matches themselves, I'd have to give Taker and Shawn the nod for that. Um, it's one of those things where when somebody brings up WrestleMania and you start talking the streak, these are typically, if not the two, they're two of like the first three or four matches that come popping into your head. Um, so yeah, I mean that's the kind of legacy they left behind in those two matches in 25 and 26, and obviously Shawn kind of rears his ugly head again eventually during the midst of the two Triple H matches, but we'll jump back into that next week.
It's gonna be a good way to wrap it up and wrap up this little four match streak here between obviously and arguably it ends an era when it's all said and done. We'll cover that next week. He's Brian Cady. I'm Chris Page. This is a CCP podcasting production, and we're saying thank you for being a friend.
Thank you for being